pleasure again to be here. Filmfest Dresden is an incredible platform for short films, for international short films. And it's kind of becoming a little family, like new members coming in, old members seeing each other. We are growing and holding together. I think in times of these, it's so important that we start to. I hear a pew, pew.
Yeah.
Do you?
There's a slight feedback.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't want to penetrate your ears. It's in the making. So. Yeah, I think in times like these, it's much more important that we build networks and start to inspire each other and to work with each other. So this panel today is the topic about what's the point of solidarity. And I'm so happy to see so many people here, and I'm also so happy to have these incredible human beings with me. By the way, I'm Mateja, she, her. So I think when we all say our names, it will be also good that we say our pronouns. So this incredible human being, I don't know if you're she, her. She, her, is Vic So Hee. Vic is a dramaturg and a writer for film. How do I say Drehbuchautorin?
Screenwriter.
A screenwriter, advisor, and activist. And we have here Benita Bailey. For the purpose of transparency, Benita and me, we are friends. I just think it's very important when we think about feminism and feminist working in the business. I think that transparency is a big topic, so this is why I'm just making here transparent that we also know each other in private life and that we are friends. Benita, I'm a big fan of. She's an actress, she's an activist, she's a creator. She created the podcast Yell It From the Mountain. And yeah, she's also a filmmaker, and right now she's developing, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it already, she's developing with
It doesn't leave the room, okay?
She's developing with the incredible also actress Jane Shurva an incredible film, I hope we'll see in a few years. And here we have Rachel Pronger, I hope I say Pronger right.
That's right.
And Rachel is also an art producer and the co-founder of Invisible Women Feminist Film Collective. So we see here incredible, we all have she, her, right? So we all see here incredible women who are not just filmmakers, but they also kind of try to change the business or also to inspire the business. So, talking of solidarity, I would like to start with you, and I have a question. For me, I think let's think about what is solidarity. The interesting thing, solidarity comes, the usual term comes from France, and it's from the 16th century, and it meant, it's more about business, and it meant French legal usage in which the legal concept of an obligation of solidum. This means a joint contractual obligation in which each signatory declared himself or herself liable for the debts of all together. So there were people together, and each one of them signed a contract that if somebody gets into debt, they will für sie bürgen. Wie sag ich nochmal bürgen? They will stand also for this person. So the whole concept of solidarity, when we trace it back, goes back to the 16th century and goes back to trade rules of France, which is interesting. So, but what does solidarity mean right now? What does solidarity mean to you? What is it?
Sorry, there was a lot of information.
I'm so sorry, I talk too much.
I'm trying to collect myself real quick. I like this togetherness, and I liked also this kind of contract you just mentioned. I would say from a perspective as a writer, from a writer's perspective and a creator's perspective, I'd like to somehow distance myself from the very Eurocentric aspect of the authorship. Mm-hmm. So one work, one writer. So this is my first, I think, act against this authorship of like the, how do you say, like one woman work or one man work kind of thinking, and I would like to open it up because film is a communicative tool and we want to get in a dialogue. So I think to approach stories, you need people, and you need people to talk with, and you need unison of people, and not just me alone. So this is where I start from a mindset of solidarity.
Mm-hmm.
Same question.
Yes.
Different angle.
What does solidarity mean to you?
I think there are different ways for me to look at it. I think it holds a meaning since I was very small, because I think I grew up in the former East, in Thuringia of Germany, and as a minority person, so I was like the only black child in school and everywhere, you automatically have a different perspective on the world, right? Like, this is just how it is. And you think you're part of it, but you get mirrored back that you're not part of it, which is confusing as a child. But I think you really quickly learn that a survival or a mechanism is to get together with certain people who are with you. So it's actually, for me, like an internal structure or mechanism to, when I walk into a room, like subconsciously, to already like connect with people. And I think that it took me a while that it was once a survival mechanism, now it's a little bit also a superpower. And that is what the world needs right now, a lot of, I think. And in filmmaking, and you talked about that, particularly like this genius theory, if some of you are familiar to this, which is not just in filmmaking, it's actually in all the arts and beyond, also in science and whatever, that there's like one person, you know, a film made by, and like ignoring all the other parts is like, I think we are beyond that, we are post that time. And so filmmaking is, exactly like you said, a greater act, and I think communicating that through our films, through our ways of working, including care work, including a lot of other things, caring off for ourselves as well, I think that is a little bit of a revolutionary act still, even though for me it feels very intrinsic and very close to what I know.
So I think you both made a lot of points that I would totally echo. I completely agree with this idea about solidarity being about moving away from individualism. I think it is an active resistance against the kind of market forces that within the film industry force us to see each other in opposition and constantly in competition as peers, rather than question the hierarchies that build the industry and that create the conditions that we all experience as film workers that can be really unjust and uneven. I really like this French definition that you have there, this idea of the group carrying the debts together, because I think that is also solidarity, is about carrying the worries and difficulties of others and spreading that weight, and therefore making that weight easier to bear, because there will always be difficulties wherever you are in the industry. There will always be problems, but I think if we can find a way of working in solidarity together, then we can really work out how to lessen that burden and share that burden, and also not deny that burden, because that's really important, I think. Solidarity is also about acknowledging the injustices that other people are facing, that perhaps you personally are not facing, but seeing them in others and recognizing them, that's also part of this, I think.
And the next question is also for all three of you. When we think of, so first of all, thank you for the answers. When we think of solidarity, like each one of you already made the first steps to not just to think more solidary, how do I say it? In solidarity? No. In solidarity, but you're also practicing it. For example, you practice it when you say that authorship is not just one person, it's many. But I think it's so hard because each one of us tries to change things, but the whole system is not built for these changes. or these changes are being attacked as being naive or not, that one person is not genius enough, so this person needs other persons. Would you like to tell what were your first steps to start to change the business, to be more in solidarity with other people, and what were the hardest obstacles, and probably also what were your superpowers to kind of get over these obstacles? When you, for example, talk about the author, I would really be interested.
For me as a writer, I am delighted to share, for example, my writer's credit. So even though I'm the head writer of a series, for example, I invite all my staff writers and agree with them that we are sharing all the writer's credit. So for example, if we develop within a writer's room 6 episodes of a series, we will be accountable for all the scripts equally. Mm-hmm. And this means for a writer that this particular writer, for example, Benita is in my writer's room, she will get 6 book credits or script credits, which is great, instead of just 1. And this is what I like very, very much. And I also like to think that without the first script, there wouldn't be the second script. There wouldn't be the last episode, for example. So with this kind of thinking that we're going to share all the credits, we're going to share the power, we're going to share the knowledge, and without you, I can't develop any other episodes and so on. It will get more complex, I will win more perspectives, so I will learn more. This is the first thing I try to somehow implement into this, or to how do you say, to get away from this individual thinking. I'm very transparent with the money and how much money we get. So
very important. Yeah.
So this is good for us to get into, how do you say, Verhandlungen, in order to somehow share equal pay. So this is very important to me, and I implemented also a new talent program. So I know that there usually are budget fits, and the budget is very, very stiff. But to me, sometimes solidarity means also to step back a bit. And I am very privileged to just care for myself. I don't have family. So I am in a position where I could share half of my pay to a new talent and give not only room and space, but also can pay someone. But it also means that I just have 50% of my pay. But this is, for example, my first step towards solidarity and towards changing some structures.
And I have a question to this also. Was it also kind of sometimes then hard for some people with whom you work to accept this way of working?
Yeah, I think especially with the writers and authorship thing, it is very, very internalized in our thinking, in the way we perceive art and work and creative work. It has been, people still think that when there is a script and there's just one name under the script written by, that this has more value than a script written by, say, five authors. And I really, really don't see it like that, because it is, as you know, so much more communication, so much more work, so much more effort, and also, yeah, really, how do you say, awareness or respect towards each other, to put in, effort to put in, to get a script where 5 people are somehow willing to say that this has been written by us. Yeah.
And how, just the last one also to this topic, how did you navigate, for example, if you had an author who then said, well, I don't want to share my credit, or I don't want to be a part because it's not this that we can always choose the people we are working with.
I mean, my ideal approach is, of course, that we all agree on something. I usually am in a hierarchical, like higher position. So if I say you are invited, and these are the circumstances, and these are the rules, or these are the conditions I'm offering you, and if this person declines or if this person disagrees, we usually already figure out that this might not be the right surrounding to work together. Yeah.
Nice.
So, and then this person will also make room for a person whose like conditions fits more their conditions. So, yeah.
I also think for rooms where we try to practice solidarity, there also needs that the participants of these rooms already need to be on this point where they already unlearned some behaviors, because otherwise I think we cannot get to another step.
I don't know if they need to be, or if they need to have this awareness already. I think what they need, or what I wish, they bring some interest, some openness, and some eagerness, like willingness. Let's say like willingness to learn, to open up, to try something new. Mm-hmm. Even though no one has tried before, or even though we might fail, but at least we tried. So this is my offering, and so far it has been a ride. It has been a pleasure, and I had really, really great and beautiful experience with that.
Mm-hmm. Nice, thank you. So coming to you, beautiful Benita. What are your acts of solidarity? How are you trying to change the business, and what were the obstacles, and how could you challenge them and get over it? Share some infos for inspiration, girl.
Yes. I think there are so many ways in challenging the status quo, like even here at the festival, having talks with Anna in between, and challenging things that I'm seeing, because I cannot unsee certain structures that are there and that are standing out of for me. But I think to sum it up, also the Yellow from the Mountain that you mentioned before, I have 3 points, and I think they are maybe connected to solidarity. So I really care about creating access. I think it's a Toni Morrison quote. She said, whenever you have power, it's your, I'm rephrasing, it's your task to share power. So obviously if I don't have power, I still think there are things you can do. But if you do have power, there's for me no excuse to not share it. And that starts with sharing the knowledge about this festival. Since I came here, I talked to so many people outside about this festival, and how you can get in and so on. That's the number one thing. I had different, so accessibility is a big one for me, because I see a lot of filmmakers not being presented here. There are a lot, but there are lots of people missing. There's a große Leerstelle, as we would say in Germany. There's in our competition, and we're both on the jury, and in the international competition, and we watched a lot of films in the last 3 days. There's not any film from the African continent, and no film in the competition from a black filmmaker, which is the global majority on this planet. Just think about that. So those are things that I cannot unsee, and I wonder why is that, What are the reasons for that? So I'm where is the mismatch? Where is the access that it's not there? And those are questions that we have to ask if we are in the leadership of festivals. And then that's accessibility. Then my other point is empowerment. How can I empower others who are I have a huge focus on underrepresented, that can be a lot of different groups, that are not shown on screen, that are not giving the opportunities to share their stories. How can those people be empowered? And unapologetically have them as your audience, radically, not making excuse if there are people not understanding your film or not like seeing the appeal, but there are people empowered. So that's the other thing, the second thing. And the third thing is representation, you know, that we really, you know, if we call this an international festival, that means it's between nations, and I'm like, it has this kind of world, global appeal, but I can't help but point out that so many are left out. And I think that we have to think about it, or we call it differently maybe. Otherwise, so that is a huge thing in solidarity. Who are we really in solidarity with? And that, yeah, that is, I think, a really big question. So to answer the question, what are my obstacles? I think my obstacles are maybe sometimes, it's hard to weigh the different things that I'm doing, you know, like you're in jury one day, and then the next day I'm like, I don't know, doing my podcast in another city, and then the next day I'm doing an audition for a show, and the next day I'm performing on stage, and I love that, don't get me wrong, but while I do all that, I'm also, like yesterday, in contact with a person who's an artist, who experienced severe racism, who I'm trying to direct to the right people to get the care that this person needs, because community building and taking care of each other is another really big thing of being in solidarity, because for me, I know how it feels when you feel alone, because the structures push you down from succeeding. And I also, for instance, teach at university, so if my students have that, I don't like this hierarchy where you are the university lecturer and you're not reachable for them. Obviously, I'm not the therapist, I totally get it, I'm not trying to save everybody's lives, that's not what I mean, but I'm trying to at least direct to the other people and not make them feel like they're alone. That's my own concern, to like help each other by at least saying, hey, this is how I handle the situation, or can you, like today I asked somebody else, can you write the statement and we can post it? And yeah, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question also, because I know you very good and I know that you're doing a lot and you are there for many people. And what do you think is the most important thing also for you? How do you take care of yourself, for example? Because I think at one point we get knowledge, then we realize we need to change things, then we come to the term of solidarity also. But I think it's also very important that we do not burn out. So do you have some self-care, let's call it cosmopolitan wise tips? I don't read the Cosmopolitan, you also shouldn't do it, sexist bullshit. But do you have some some life hacks, or do you have like a built-in something where you just realize, okay, now I have to take care, and now I have to go into solidarity with me and my soul and my needs and what my soul and my body needs also. Do you feel the time? What is?
Okay, if that was the title of the show, I would not sit on that panel, because I don't think I'm the best person to get advice on that. I'm still learning a lot about that. But I think what really fills me up is spending quality time with like powerful people, like on the stage, like having time with you, like good conversation where a lot of unlearning has been done, and where we can talk on a different level. Like, I think that is very nourishing, and obviously all kinds of forms of like retreating and being in nature and stuff, that really helps me, and I should do more of that. But yeah, that is basically it. But it's a really good point, and I see around me a lot of people who
That's why you're leaving now.
Yeah, and bye. No, but yeah, there's a lot to be said about that self-care thing. But yeah.
I will just go a step deeper in it, because I needed a long time to realize my signals, my warning signals, for example. I did not realize that they are warning signals when I did too much, or when I stopped to take care of myself, and then I looked at my mother and I just realized, okay, this woman never takes care of herself, she always takes care of everybody else, and I do not want to become like this. She is, of course, but I don't want it to, so I wanted to ask you for the warning signals and the signs. This is what I mean, because I think many people are also sitting here who are helping, and but then at one point when you're into it, you also forget your body and your soul. And what
Okay,
what
I do have a life hack.
Yeah.
First of all, I really believe that the body is talking to you. So my body's giving hardcore signals, but I overdo it. So one of the things is that I have, and probably many of you, is like my eye starts twitching, or I get a sound in my ear. I feel like this is really extreme. It's just like, hey, what are you doing? Sleep. Things like that. And especially the sound of my ear, which I haven't had in a long time, that is for me like go to bed. Like everything is cancelled. Like just go to bed. Like rest, sleep, and it goes away, because then I'm like, okay, this is like alarming. But I haven't had that, so I do actually for a while look at my sleep a lot, like sleep and life hack, protein. Like really, like this is weird. This sounds really weird, but protein. No, really, I talked to a nutritionist about this. Is like I haven't been sick in 1.5 years, and I think it's because, and I'm on these festivals, Berlinale and stuff, everybody gets sick, and the thing is, it's true, and then, but if you can calculate how much protein you need a day, and I'm really not a person who's like checking her food, like what, like, I know I should maybe, but I'm not, but the protein is the only thing I take care of, that I have a lot of it, because it works like protection wall against bacteria and viruses and stuff. And since then, it's really working well for me. Like, sleep. Of course, there's like this all like don't eat sugar, water, and stuff like that's good too. But like those two is like sleep and protein. It's gonna go a long way. Talk to me next year. Give me feedback on that. Really, yeah. That's my.
This is such a great entry point for a story. Like you're turning around, like open your jacket, and this is my.
Yeah. This is what you expect on the
This is the
Filmmakers
protein
talk.
The side business you have.
We should all take more proteins. I mean, look at her. She's hot, she's incredible, she's talented, she's smart, she's funny. Like, take your proteins. Okay. So, or vegan proteins. Yeah.
They come in all forms.
And Rachel, coming to you. So, what are your acts of solidarity, and what are the obstacles, and how do you overcome them? Would you like to share it with us?
So I don't have any diet tips, I'm afraid.
That's great.
That information.
Good mix of people.
But I think what maybe is helpful is to talk a little bit in like practical terms about my background and kind of how I've sort of started to develop a worldview a bit about this. So I founded, with my friend Camilla, the film collective Invisible Women about 8 years ago now, and it was never a thought of like, oh, we're going to start a business. It was like, oh, we're two friends who are studying film together, and we wanted to find an opportunity to show more films made by women and non-binary people from film history to audiences, because we saw a gap. And we started doing that very much off our own backs, so like with our own money, like just putting screenings in the back of art galleries, breaking loads of like best practice rules and copyright laws in the process, and really just learning how to curate this way. And then slowly people got interested in what we were doing, and we got a new member, Lawrence. There's 3 of us now in the collective. And also we started working a lot with festivals and institutions, because people started approaching us and saying, oh, this is cool, here's a cinema, you could do this properly, like let's do this together. And while that was really amazing, to be able to have a bigger platform for the work and to sometimes get paid for the work, what was a bit difficult was you start to realize the power imbalance there is between you as like an independent curator or grassroots organization and these institutions which tend to be kind of faceless, even though the individuals in them can be great. The institution is this monolith with a lot of power, and that creates a really big imbalance. And so over time, within the collective, we've started to kind of develop our own coping strategies of how to work with bigger organizations without getting swallowed up and without feeling like we're losing our own ethical code. Because as soon as you start working in these bigger contexts as well, you start to realize how many corners get cut, how many people are getting cut out of these programs, and kind of like you were saying, you see more power imbalances. You see some really bad like working practices, filmmakers not getting paid, for instance, an expectation that people will work for free for prestige, all these kind of things. So within the collective, over time, we've tried to advocate more and more vocally for different ways of working. And we also work a lot collaboratively with other independent curators in a kind of sideways, non-hierarchical way. So collaboration rather than employment or like, you know, bringing people in as workers on a project. It's really much more kind of sideways than that. And also working with other collectives in a sideways way. And in doing so, I hope that we are slowly creating an alternative network and an alternative circuit, really, within which we can show films and bring in audiences and show the films in the best possible way, but without constantly compromising people in the process. And we want to create curation. I mean, we describe ourselves as archive activists, and that's to do with this idea that the film archive is unrepresentative, and we need to, as activists, there is a political dimension to that work, the curatorial work, but it's also about advocating for different ways of working now in the industry. We're also trying to be advocates for this too. So I think what's been exciting and hopefully valuable is seeing other people, the way other people were working on our level, and going, that's amazing, how can we work like that, and kind of learning from each other in this way. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of the principle behind what we're doing and what I've been learning over the years as well, that there is a different way of working. We don't have to work in these really dodgy circumstances where you feel a bit dirty at the end of doing some work that you should be really proud of. And also that it's a people industry. Curation is a people industry. We are people as curators, audiences are people, filmmakers are people, so we shouldn't be treating people as products. That's part of it too.
And you talked about the collective, and at the beginning you said you and Camilla, right?
Yeah.
So is the collective still the two of you, or is it now more people?
So it's now 3 people in the collective. So it's me, based in Berlin, Camilla, who's based in Edinburgh, and Lauren, who's based in Glasgow. So we're a collective that works across countries. We do a lot of screenings in the UK, but also increasingly in Europe and Germany. But we've also done like a screening in Mexico City, for instance. So we're trying to like do a kind of a global network, which is also part of the learning. To see how other people in other countries are doing stuff is very useful. And again, challenges hierarchies of value as well. I think that's important. So yeah, we're a very small collective of 3, but as I say, we work a lot with other people in a way that is collective adjacent, I would say. Other collaborators, and also with other collectives as well.
And I also have a question, because when we talk about solidarity, we also always talk, or not always, but many times about collectives. And for me, to work in a collective is kind of like a muscle which needs to be trained. Otherwise, it's not working. And working in a collective can be sometimes so hard, and it can be so great, but kind of the collective, I'm talking about a collective where everybody is willing to learn and to unlearn things. But sometimes you just realize, oh my God, why I'm such an asshole. Or sometimes you realize, oh my God, she's an asshole, but I love her, I need to forgive her. We all need to learn. So this transformation of this collective, would you like to say a few words about this? Share it with us. Was it always easy? Is it sometimes hard? Do you hate sometimes the others? Do they hate you? Like, come on, all of us. We are all assholes. We are all bitches sometimes. Let's embrace also the bitchism of it all, but let's then correct after each other or ourselves. So,
So I mean, a collective it's so easy to be really romantic about it and be like, a collective, everything's great. It's like a commune or whatever. But like any relationship, it's work. Obviously, you have to put work in, and there will be times when it's easier and times when it's harder. I would say I feel, not to be really annoying, but we're really harmonious. Like, we get on really well. But I think the reason why we get on really well is because we were a remote collective from quite early on. Like, me and Camilla met in Edinburgh. We started doing screenings, and then Camilla moved to Mexico for 2 years. So we had to develop a way of working across this big time difference and geographic boundary. And this is pre-pandemic days as well. So like we weren't all Zooming all the time. But that gave us a really big advantage because we had to learn to communicate really clearly very early on. And we also set up like systems. So we speak to each other every week, the collective. We have a set time that we meet. If you can't make that meeting, that's a big deal. Like, you can't flake out. You have to work out what to do if someone can't make it. Because what we've realised is as soon as you stop communicating properly, everything falls apart. So you really have to have like the regular check-ins and the muscle, like you said, like you build that muscle of connection all the time. We also got to a point where we work so closely together that we can kind of read each other's minds, which is extremely useful, very efficient. And we're okay, it's a bit like siblings or something, so we're okay also with having a slightly harder conversation because we know the love is there. But we built that up over 8 years. We couldn't have done that straight away. That's something that we've learned to do. But I think what you were saying earlier about transparency is super important. So I think where a lot of collectives have problems is money. As soon as you start earning money, questions about who's doing what work, well, that can get really difficult. Yeah, and obviously it's messy, and I've seen horror stories, I've heard horror stories. But I think what we do in the collective is we split everything that comes in 3 ways. Even though there are obviously projects where one of us has done a lot more work. But so far it's always been the case that over the course of a year, everyone feels like they put in the same amount of work. If that shifted significantly, then we would have to talk about it, because as soon as you start building up this voice in your head that's like, I did all the work on that and I only got a third of the money, and what's she doing anyway? Then that gets really difficult. Also, all 3 of us are freelancers, so a third of our income as freelancers comes from the collective, and 2/3 is coming from our other work that we all do. And because it's the film industry, there are times of year when some of us are super busy and some of us are less busy, and this is solidarity, you take the load of the collective, you take the responsibility. You'd be like, I do the Instagram this week, I'll do the emails this week because I know that you have a big festival on. But again, there has to be a willingness from every member to do that, and I think as soon as someone is unwilling to do that, that is when you have problems. Yeah.
I wanted to say one more thing about collectivity, because especially in the writing thing, because I don't say that it has to be a collective from start to beginning, and I don't just put teamwork people in my team. There are also writers who are not good in developing in writers' rooms, for example, but they are really, really good in, for example, writing on their own and developing it further. So I will bring them a step later in the process. But this means also that they need to step back from maybe a step of development where a person might be a bit better fit. But this also means that they need to share the payment, of course. Everyone needs to be somehow, willing to share and to, to compromise some terms. And to me, I feel it more like an organism. Yeah? If you draw here a bit, there's also everything changes a little bit, and we all need to do this. We are an organism, and we need to somehow keep us alive. And this sometimes means I'm stepping back because, to be honest, I acknowledge this is not my place. I'm not good in maybe doing this whole work of organizing and logistics. I give this to someone else. And this to me is also collective work. To step back and to give it to someone else who might be a better fit for that. And then coming in later on. So it doesn't necessarily mean that only people who are teamwork people are a part of the process or a part of the project, but that we are collectively really, really thinking of an art piece as a whole and as something communicative, as something that one person can't do it on their own.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that just came to mind talking about collectives. Also, it has to do again with care. Like, for instance, in the context that I decide, like where I make the decisions, what I mean make the decisions is like when we as a collective together make decisions, or like when I teach or whatever, and not where I'm a hired actor, you know, that's a different story. So there we usually do check-ins at the beginning. And I just recently heard somebody again, like, was like, oh, I had to do the stupid check-ins. And it's so funny because where, like in the collectives I work with, it's like an established, we all agreed to do that. And recently we had a meeting and we didn't do it. For the first time in like, I don't know, forever. Like, it's like what we do at the beginning, but we didn't have much time and it was all pressed. And we had to talk about something it's like perfect setup because like no time, no check-in, and talk about a conflict. So it did not go well. And I thought, like this is something I prioritized always. And this time we didn't do it, and obviously we didn't check in with each other where we're at right now, how we're doing today, like where we're coming from, and then it's hard to bring an important message across because the care is not really there for whatever reason. It's not because you don't care about the person, it's just that you bring across your message a little bit, I don't know, stricter or with a certain tone or whatever. And I think it's so important because it has always been rewarding for me to do that, even in a student context at a university, because then I find out this person had like really like, I don't know, once I even found out that a person was like protesting and hold up like by the police, and that's why mentally like totally not there. And obviously they don't always share that, but because they did, then I don't think about, like I can't just leave this person and offer even to go home. And it's so important to take care of each other, especially if we work in solidarity, if we're challenging the status quo, if we're maybe on the border of burnout or anything like that. We're very fragile at times. And I think it's so important to take that into consideration because that's part of the old structure to not see us as humans, but see us as products, and therefore we have to perform no matter what. And that is, I think that is really cyclical because we're not, I don't know if cyclical is the right word right here, no, but it's sickening. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that because it was a recent experience and I felt like you have to, you know, those things are really ringing true, especially in those moments.
Yeah, solidarity to care for each other. But now I come to a very tippy-toey topic. It is, I don't want to have solidarity, for example, from everybody. And sometimes I'm really annoyed that some people use the topics which are part of my life and a part of my family and part of why I turned out how I am, and then they make a business out of it because we live in a post-capitalist, neoliberal, hyper-individual world, and every grassroots movement one time becomes then in the mainstream media, then neoliberalism takes it and makes profit out of it. So also with this topic of solidarity, for example, okay, like let's talk real shit, okay? Like when there's some, let's say, I don't want to judge and I'm not hating, I just need to say the things I need to say right now and then to ask the question. When there's, for example, a white privileged woman, when you just thought, okay, when she gets older she will open a gallery, but she doesn't open a gallery, but makes a refugee women in exile literature Verein. The most German thing you can do and make a Verein. And then she stands in solidarity with refugee women who write, for example. But she makes this Verein, And then she gets to all the important contacts of important people, for example, in literature, and all of the fundings which are there for marginalized people. But through this, that she opens this fine and says who's gonna be part of it and who not, and now people know her name, because without her now solidarity topic, refugee women, nobody in nowhere would know her name. So, so my question is, because for me, I don't want to have solidarity from everybody. From some people, I just want them to shut up, really just to shut up. So what do I have to unlearn? Or do you also have similar dingly-linglies or thoughts when you just thought, okay, bitch, you are misusing it, or you are just profiting out of it, or move? And how to deal with it.
I'm not telling you what to do or what.
No.
I'm inviting you to be very careful with where you put your energy on. So this is my saying. There are those people. They exploited. There has been and there will be, and this is something that is bigger than me. And it's, I think, a very conscious choice for me to not go there, to not look at it, to not waste any any energy, any frustration, negative energy on it, because it doesn't do me any good. So I rather not to, and I can't control it. It will happen, and it is of course annoying and insulting. Of course, I understand this. I feel you. But I can't. I'm choosing not to waste any more energy on that.
Question.
And this is me being in solidarity towards me, but also towards my community. It's a yes and a yes towards my people.
Yeah, I also want to add something, if I may.
Yeah, please, girl, go.
I think what is very interesting is that right now, in Germany, but also I would say globally, we're living in a time and age where DE&I is like right now not on vogue anymore, and therefore in German we would say die Spreu trennt sich vom Weizen, which means I don't know. I don't know.
Die Spreu trennt sich vom Weizen.
Which you separate shit from gold.
Yeah.
It's not. I just invented it.
Yeah.
But it's basically.
So sorry, but like what the saying actually says is that right now you see the real people.
Read from the chat, this idea. Yes.
Thank you. That is it.
Oh.
Yes. Perfect.
Girl.
You see,
Can
this
we
is
talk in German?
No, seriously now, like right now, this is actually a fascinating time for me. The most fascinating thing about the shit show that we're seeing right now is that right now I can see who's kind of, it was so funny, the last years I got so many friends in high positions, oh my god. Like everybody was like, oh, you're black, hi. But now, it's like very interesting because now I see who is like kind of slowly taking many steps back, and I'm like, oh, remember this whole accessibility thing we talked about for the community? I have time now, we can talk. And then they're like, yeah, how about next year? No. But like, you know what I mean? It's like I really see who is a true ally, who is in solidarity, and who is realizing, well, now the priorities have changed. And I find it really, really interesting because when the times change and the money, because now it's about money, they have to really fight for you. There's not a separate DEI budget where they can put you in. And it's about giving up positions. I mean, to be honest, it was always about that. But right now, it's more down to the nitty and gritty. Like there's no wishy-washy, beautiful talk that we can do. We were gonna go to the real stuff. And that I find really interesting. So I'm like these people, I'm a little bit on you with this because they just like killing my vibe, like these kind of people that you described. And I think they will always exist. I don't think we can really completely like
I haven't found the button. I mean, tell me, but I would push it, but I don't have the button.
Yeah,
for that.
but I think it's really important right now to find out who are the people that you actually can break barriers and go further with.
And I think we can also choose to look what's happening besides that, because we're sitting here right now. We could also highlight that, you know. Nevertheless, I haven't been in any better position than now to enable, to share my ideas, my experience, to sit opposite you who are interested and willing and open to get into a discussion. So to me, it is a really conscious choice where to focus the energy on.
Yes.
And this means a no for that is not helping you at all, and that is not solidarity to me, it's exploitation to me, but to focus your side on something else that brings you something.
But is there a possibility, also es gibt kein wahres Leben in falschen Adorno, sorry, wie kann ich das ganz kurz übersetzen? There's no right life in the wrong life, or Adorno here. So for example, for me, many people who are fighting for the right tingly-lingly, but for example, theaters or whatever, abuse of power happened there. But they say that they are on the right side, whatever that means, like they're fighting for diversity and minorities and marginalized groups and people, but still, you know, people come to me and say, yeah, I was there and I saw this play and it's good, but I just know what happened behind the scenes, all the Me Too and all the abuse of power. And of course I see the people then who say, wow, this really opened my eyes, this play, but I know what is behind the scenes happening or what happened and who survived, for example, in this theater. And I also see, I don't know, people I love, also my friends getting in and go, and I sometimes do not know how to navigate this, because I think that the movement of solidarity, what I realized that I sometimes really need to shut my eyes and to behave like things didn't happen, because the spaces where diversity and openness is happening, they're getting less and less, and they're getting smaller and smaller. And so these spaces where these things happened, when we also cancel this, it's like there's nowhere else to go. So probably is it a part of solidarity also to know what happened and that everybody knows, but that we still also look away?
Can I jump in here? So
yes,
I think
please.
that you're touching on something that is quite distinct to working in the arts, which is there is this, sometimes this disconnect between the way things are made and what the thing is saying, which I think is something that can really mess you up as a worker. And I've definitely experienced in the past that I have been working in very toxic institutions, and we've been producing incredibly great progressive programs. And inside the institution, everything is rotting and on fire, and the like shiny frontage is like a really beautiful, powerful message about worker solidarity, for instance. And that can really mess you up, because you're saying something and presenting something that isn't your felt reality as a worker. And increasingly, I feel that those two things have to be connected, that we have to be aware of the means of production and the conditions of production, as well as what the work is saying, and that simply producing good art is absolutely not enough politically, and that's why we have to be transparent about the way things are produced and talk about how they're produced. And this is also an aspect of performing acting solidarity, is being open about when you have experiences like I've had, where you know that you are effectively pinkwashing a building because you're presenting, you know, I had a feminist film club program in an art house cinema, and then I was hearing from other women workers in the building that they were experiencing sexual harassment, you know? And to know that your program was being used as a kind of smokescreen for this was very, very disturbing to me. And I think it's really important that we talk about when we get into those situations, because especially when you're starting out in the industry, it's very easy to get into these toxic situations and you're accidentally being part of the problem. So that we then have to talk without judgment about those experiences and work out how we navigate them.
I like your point very much, to more see it as a process instead of a finite project or result. For example, I see success not as the film art piece as itself. I see it as a process. So to me, it feels like a real success if I am happy to see people I have been working and developing this story for over a year or months and months of like very, very intimate spaces where we maybe quarreled, where we argued, where we laughed, where we opened up, but where we are happy to see each other because we had such a good ride and we had such a good time. To me, this is success in filmmaking and in developing stories. To me, it's not the film just by itself. For me, real success is the process of getting there.
I would like to go back to what you said, that you then worked in institutions where you realized that things are happening and that they started to pinkwash the building. How did you navigate? What are the possibilities to navigate when we realize there is pseudo solidarity with, for example, marginalized groups and also females? How do we navigate through these institutions?
So in my experience, the way that situation worked out is that, so it was a bit complicated because it also came to kind of it kind of came to a conclusion during the pandemic when the cinema was closed. But what happened is there was a period of time when the cinema closed and the workers in the cinema that I was at started talking to each other in a way that we hadn't before because the cinema was closed. So the kind of hierarchies of that building vanished because we were no longer in the building, and this created a situation where we were able to be more honest about our own experiences. And this resulted in the workers of the cinema clubbing together. There were about 80 workers that were involved in this because it was a very big cinema with multiple kind of bars and restaurants as part of the building. But a large group of workers clubbed together and wrote an open letter that was then sent to the CEO, talking about this disconnect and basically calling for the resignation of the CEO. So that was like a very specific set of circumstances. It played out, there were other complicating factors as well, but it played out that in the end there was a change of management at that cinema. So that action did succeed. But what I would say is that there had been, whispers and open secrets in that building for years and years and years, and it really took the conditions of the pandemic and the suspension of real life, daily life, to allow those walls to fall down and to allow us to be able to talk honestly, because there became nothing left to lose, because it was increasingly looking like the cinema would never reopen again because of what had happened, So things had to get into a really extreme situation before we were able to deal with the problem. I have seen other examples of people doing this, and I think more and more I'm seeing open letters on Instagram and things from people working within arts institutions, exposing what's happening in those institutions. We all follow a few of those Instagram accounts, I'm sure, where workers are anonymously publishing their experiences, for instance, or openly talking about what's happening, but as a group, so there is a bit more protection. And this is another important thing about solidarity, is when you are talking as a group, there is a protection that comes with that you don't have as an individual coming forward, and that's why change is then often more able to happen when a group of people instrumentalize together. And this is one thing that I love about being an Invisible Women, is that when we have difficult emails to write, we sign them off, all three of us. And that means that one of us is not going to become after, someone is not just going to be like, okay, well, Rachel's on a blacklist now. Because you could just blacklist all three of us, but it seems a bit pointless. It's easier to stand up for yourself if you are a collective entity rather than an individual.
And if someone is standing behind you, right? Behind what you're saying and what you're standing for.
Yeah, we also I'm also one of the founding members of Filmmakers Association, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and we sometimes have made statement calling out racist films or calling out certain structural issues in the industry, and exactly if we would write one person giving the statement, then we feel like basically cancelled, like as the most vulnerable people. And so we always also sign it as like black filmmakers, and then they just know, I mean, the board members are sometimes also cancelled, but like, because those are the faces they have, but it's always better because there are already people in like better positions, and that's a better place. So I think that's why it's also good to do solidarity, because like, for instance, Vic and we knew each other through this different activism work we do, and I think that's how we knew it. No, we didn't know each other through that, but also through that. And then it's already like, you're already looking forward to being on this panel, or like I was already looking forward to seeing Vic, because I know we're in solidarity with our different associations that we're attached to. And that is, I think that is right now very important, especially if you work for, if you are in a toxic situation with your institution or whatever, and you can't just leave, which is also a very serious reality because of dependencies and whatever, or contracts or whatever, then try to start, because that's what I've been doing, is like nourishing these other solidarity relationships, you know, like just feeding that, because this is building you, this is nourishment. And then eventually what happened, like now I feel like I'm in a super privileged situation, because all work engagements that I have are like into school situations, and that is the most powerful. Like, this is really great because I work with different people all the time, but either I'm lucky enough to choose who I work with, or I work with people who are already doing like the unlearning and so on, and they are nourishment to me. And I think if you feed that, it will grow, and it will not be maybe your job situation right now, but maybe in 5 years.
And maybe one more thing about, because you started like an open letter and something, I think more and more people are doing it the way it is. It has never been that easy to spread like a counter narrative somehow. What I mean is like share good experience and bad experience, and I think this is very, very crucial also for especially newcomers and new talents, because they still grew up or they still learned in toxic environments where they think they need to endure this, they need to accept this. And this is why we have to share bad experiences, where they can come to us and ask for advice, and where we share knowledge, where we share experience, where we share even how to formulate an open letter, you know. And I think this is what's happening. We are talking to each other, we are not divided by, we stand in solidarity, which means we talk, we get in touch with each other, we share, and this is what I mean when I say focus on where you find support instead of division and isolation, because this is our reality. We can't get away from it.
I also think that solidarity is the weapon, the best weapon now to face the fascism we are heading to right now, because solidarity is everything contrary to fascism. Solidarity is to think with each other, to have parties with each other, to inspire each other, to learn from each other, and also to argue with each other. And I think fascism has very clear what they stand for and who is the enemy. And they always need an enemy so they can put themselves up. So, and I'm also thinking about, in times like these, do we sometimes lose the ability to dream? Because we who are now here sitting, I think we can all name racism and discrimination, and we can name, and we say what it is and how it feels, and what we can analyze it. And I asked myself, can we also dream about a world where solidarity is the main force, where solidarity rules us people and like leads us people and leads us I say it art makers because we make art also. And how would this world look? Because we always look from the perspective we are in it. But I really like Alfred North Whitehead. Alfred North Whitehead was a mathematician, then he was a philosopher, and he brought up the philosophy of the speculative. He's like, it's very complicated, but to break it down, he said, tell the stories in the present how you would imagine the future for yourself. For example, Black Panther is a very good example for thinking in speculative theory, imagining a completely different world, which does not have to do anything with this world we are here. And so my last question for you, I know you want to say something, but just let me, and then how would the world look on all three of us, but Benita then first wants to say something, if we would live in solidarity? Would the women be more, I think I would eat more, and I think I would go also free the nipple in summer and stuff like that. But like just for how would the world look if we would live in solidarity, and how would our filmmaking, our art thing? But yeah, please say something.
Can I go first, or do you want?
Yes, please.
I need some time.
So my raw answer, without time, is that I really think that a world in solidarity is a world where filmmaking happens with less fear. I'm saying there's maybe a little bit good thing in fear also, but that opens a whole lot of the can of worms. I'm not getting into that. But I think radical filmmaking, in a way, for me, is like not to stress. Now we know you are leaving. Bye!
I have a good excuse. No, not.
No, but like really, I think what I'm hitting at is like there's so much concern about audiences and how films are perceived, and also which festival. And I'm not saying obviously you have to do a plan, do some thoughts into which festival you hand in your films, but also radical filmmaking means like that you really trust and believe in what you're making without thinking about the audience. And that might be not the problem for some people, but that's what I'm seeing in my community, that there's a lot of concern that it's understood by certain people. So I'm challenging people, especially from underrepresented community, but also other people who are like, it's very important to see yourself in a world that doesn't exist yet, and make the film for that. Like, don't make the film and think like, okay, in the current political situation or whatever, but like, I recently dreamt with a person is like, what would making a film in a post-racist world look like, you know? It's like very interesting to talk about that and really think that, and what kind of films would we make, you know? And I'm just this morning I had a talk with a friend of mine who's a filmmaker who's like, I don't want anymore to make films for cater to a white audience. I don't want to do this anymore, and it's okay if they don't understand it. It's totally okay if they have questions or find it too bold or too this or to that. But I'm just gonna tell my narrative, and I think I see too little of that. More on some of the festivals, but still not enough. And I think that will bring us way more in solidarity, because it is more true and transparent, and all the things that we tapped on today can be really shown. Yeah,
Do you want to go first, Rachel?
No, you can go first.
Damn it! Damn it! I tried. I just step in. I don't know if it would be so much different to me, to be honest. But it would be easier, for sure, because until I have to do so much like invisible work and awareness talk and sensitivity talk in order to create an infrastructure where I really can be freely creative with my co-writers and my co-creators. So this is where the real work is behind it. And this wouldn't be happening, and this wouldn't be necessary anymore. So I could put a lot of this energy into creative writing, which I would love very, very much. And I think that, especially for post-migrant stories, I think most of the stories wouldn't be less heavy and less bound to reality that this has really happened. Like, what I notice is in most post-migrant stories it is, and I'm not saying that it's not justified, it's just happening, that the fiction I see is mainly how it happened, how it really happened. Mm-hmm. It's a post-narrative kind of thing. And I dream a post-migrant narrative as playful, as speculative, as empowering, as we have seen in Everything Everywhere All at Once, as something highly creative, as something that can happen, that is blowing out our minds, and that it allows us to create endings that are not traumatic, for example, and to build up stories that are not based on traumas. And that we don't, that we don't just write about our traumas, because this is not our responsibility. This is not our reason of existence, that we need to go into our traumas to be able to create stories or write stories. So I think this would be a great work for me.
Yeah, I really like this idea that you both kind of gestured towards about a potential of creating films not for a market, but films for people. I think that would be really, really nice. And also to go beyond the film that you're expected to make or that you believe you should make to what you actually want to make. That would also be really nice. Kind of a sidebar, but what I would say is if you're someone who spends a lot of time in history, like I do, like digging around really nerdily in like dusty piles of VHSs, etc. What is really, I think, inspiring and depressing, is to see how we have been here before. We've always been here before. And we've always been at points of intense crisis. Like I've done lots of work around alternative filmmakers making films in the 80s when the AIDS epidemic was landing, you know, and that really was the end of the world in lots and lots of ways. That was a complete world-changing experience, a huge tragic experience. I've also, you know, worked a lot with 70s feminist collectives, and you're looking at a time when women are, you know, where marital rape is still legal, where there are no real protections for women in the workplace, where there are no protections for women's wages, and obviously there are still loads of problems there, but that was also a different catastrophic time for different reasons, and you could, you know, there are countless examples like this. So what I would advise people to do if they're feeling despairing is to go and find the filmmakers that have done this already, who have made speculative work, who have made optimistic work, like foolishly optimistic work in the face of really devastating circumstances, and to take hope from that when people have felt bleak before, they've always made really great art, and they've found a way to make great art, even when when film is really expensive and when it's really hard to access the means. Right now, anyone can make a film. We can all make film. The access to the means of production is really there. There are lots of other problems, but that's no longer a problem. So let's try and find what we can do now in the face of these horrific political circumstances, and take inspiration from people who've done it before.
And it has done before, which is kind of like also soothing.
And it's also okay to do like very heavy and traumatic and like, you know, empowerment is a broader definition. Also a sad story can be empowering, and also you can find solidarity in tragedy. So it's just because it sounds a little bit like rainbows and happy happiness only. That will not be. But it would be also cool to have that, a lot of that.
And to add there's this incredible series, Women Make Films. These are different films. You can get it on Criterion Channel. When you go through VPN, you need to put VPN, then you need to sign up in the Criterion Channel, and then you can always go, or you can just illegally download it, like, sorry to say, but I mean, I don't know why this stuff is not somewhere here in Europe, like, because you can just get it from the Criterion Channel.
Rachel, work on it.
I mean, if you want stories about women making films, we have a huge editorial section of our website. So we don't publish films, but we publish film history. So you can find us free to access articles on lots of the women that I mentioned. A lot of those films can be found online. The Internet Archive, for instance, has a lot of stuff. If you do a little bit of searching, you can find things. Also, just follow us on Instagram. We're always like sending out ideas and programs. So, you can also pirate Criterion.
Interesting. Yes, girl. So please follow Rachel. And I would like, everybody, let's follow each other. No. And now I would like to open it.
I feel like a missionary here, like, follow me, follow me. My beliefs.
It's good to have good missionaries. To say abolish the other missionaries or all. Well, but I would like to open the last little bit of minutes for the audience. Please, do you want to say something? Do you have questions? Do you want to say to somebody you love her or the work? Ask some fans.
You don't have to do it publicly.
Or do you want to share something? I will bring the microphone. So somebody. Monica.
Thank you, Mateja. Thank you. A really absolute highlight of the year for me so far, and definitely nourishes my work as a programmer and festival maker. Thank you. Really, this is the talk we've all been needing. Not to be divided, but to come together and to share. And thank you. So much gratitude.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Monica. Somebody else has a question or something urgent to say, or is a fan wants to have an autograph. You have a question? No. Oh, sorry, I thought you were no. Somebody has a question? Because if not, my work is over. But I love this work, so does anybody have a question or remark or an add-on? Nobody. Then do somebody of you want to say Ergänzung? How do I say Ergänzung? Addition.
Like add something.
Do anybody of you want to add
words?
something? Like before we say time to say goodbye. Does anybody want to say something?
I just want to say thank you all for coming, and thank you for these powerful women to be on stage with me and sharing their insights. I also learned a lot. That's my thank you, Mateja,
Thanks
for
for
hosting so beautifully.
Thank you. So I would say, let's say all thank you to each other, like in church. Solidarity. Let's build networks. Let's stay solidar with each other. Let's argue solidarity. Let's love with each other. Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like let's stay in touch, keep in touch. Networks. Love, love, love. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
Angekommen? Oh, ich habe noch keinen Plan. Hast du schon einen Plan?